Right.
Hi guys.
Guess who's back?
Back again.
And mommy's back.
Mom, I feel like you're being a bit lazy now, seeing your own.
Guess who's back?
Hey, back again. Mommy's back. It's our friend. See? Vim.
Guess who's back? Back again. Mommy's back. So tell a friend, and cut. Hi guys.
Today we're back with a serious video, so I'm just gonna let Mom take the floor and introduce the video. So yeah, Mom.
Right. Okay. So we are Bantasauruses. This channel is so much about us having fun, but once in a while it's always good to take it back to basics and take it back to some issues that obviously are very important to last week, was it the week before, we had a video featuring my son Rio, who's 9, and quite a few people reached out because the video was shared on many platforms, which was not just YouTube on its own, but on other pages I am affiliated to. So I had a few people reach out to me to discuss the topic I'm going to discuss today, and it is called Raising My Son Who Has ASD. Right. By ASD I mean Autism Spectrum Disorder. Right. So my Rio, who, if you go back, he's on one, he features in a few of our vlogs here and there. He's not happy with the camera at all, but if he has to, he will. But once you have to bribe him, like in the video.
We use all different types of
bribery because he doesn't
bribery techniques.
He doesn't do videos at all. But anyway, I thought this would be of help to the people who reach out to me in my Facebook inbox regarding raising a son with ASD. So anyway, my Rio is 9 and is going to be 10 this August, and he's very much a part of our lives, and he's one of the most Bantasaurus of us all.
So funny,
he is so funny. But anyway, when he was born, like any other parent, I remember I read somewhere on the internet where somebody says, when you give birth to a child with ASD, you're prepared to go to a certain city, you've packed for that journey, you've packed for their seasons, you know exactly what to expect. But when you then give birth to a child with autism, you have to then think you're going to a different city where you haven't packed for, where you don't know the language, where you don't know who you're going to meet. So it's totally different to everything that you've been prepared for. So that was us when Rio came into our lives. So we were very much unprepared, because bear in mind, I'd been a mom when I was a teenager, and my oldest at that point was 13. So it was like having a brand spanking new baby. So I didn't see any telltale signs because I had nothing to compare to. It's not like I'd had a baby 3 years before and I was looking at the milestones. So initially, when he was younger, when he was a baby, there wasn't anything, guys, I could say, oh, there you go, that's definitely ASD there. It wasn't. There wasn't anything. When he turned 2, you could tell, when there's that tiny thing where you just cannot place your finger on it. And bear in mind, we are a very isolated family. We don't mingle that much. So it's not like Rio was around many other children for me to compare that much. So there wasn't that. When he started in nursery, he did the same things over and over again. He liked his puzzles, because he could, even up to now, he can solve a puzzle in like less than 2 seconds. He knows how to fix things. So I was just thinking, wow, my son is not speaking or talking to many people because he's concentrating on puzzles, because that's what he likes to do. When he started in foundation year, at that point it was so obvious that there were some issues. But as a mother, you're just thinking, you go with you want to believe anything and everything, and I'm being honest. You do not want to think that your son has got issues, or there are some issues that you know, you have to address. So like anybody else, I sort of like was like, okay, right, here we go. There is a problem, but I don't want to admit there's a problem. So he went to nursery, he went to foundation, because after nursery school, nothing was discussed, but clearly nursery could see there were problems, but they sort of like didn't want to discuss them with me because probably I wasn't open to the idea then. So when he went to school, foundation, his foundation teacher was fantastic, because she immediately noticed the issues. So she called me in one day, and I was just going, here we go. So she went, look, I don't know where you are in your journey, but there are clearly some issues that need to be investigated with your son. You know, he fixates on things, and at this point I was already a professional, so I knew where she was going with this. I knew what she was talking about because I was already working in the field. I was seeing this in my work life, and I just didn't want to accept that that was going to be my new reality. So I said to her, okay, so what do we do? So she says, okay, we'll speak to many professionals, I'll make referrals, and let's start the journey for real. Guys, at that point I wasn't pushing anything because I was just hoping for a miracle. I was praying for a miracle, because at this point he wasn't speaking. He was repeating things, wasn't he?
Yeah, he would be able to just tell you like
pointed things,
and
yeah.
you would know like that's what he did, or you would have to ask him, and then he would have to.
Or you just repeat what you're asking.
What you're asking, yeah. So you know that he.
So if you say, do you want some water? You'd go, do you want some water? So you would know that he wants some water, type of thing. But he wasn't communicating like that. So reality kind of hit then. So I went home, I slept. Then I thought, okay, if anything was to happen to me today, if I was to die, I was going to become with my son. And you know, that's the most heartbreaking thing. Thinking, okay, he's never ever going to be able to tell me what his day has been like. He's never ever going to tell me if he's being bullied at school. You know, things like that. You know, things that we take for granted, things that I took for granted when I was raising, you know, the girls. Now I was having to factor in that my son is probably never ever going to be able to express himself. So I cried, guys. It was so heartbreaking for me, because now I'm starting on a journey I had not packed for. I'm starting on a journey that I wasn't prepared for. I'm starting on a journey that I've got no knowledge on, apart from the, you know, the books, the practicality of raising a son with autism. I didn't have any practice of that. No one had prepared me for it. So, like we do in our family, we sat down. You know, I spoke to the girls, and we said we're going to do the best we can to support Rio. So the appointments started coming, you know, the referrals came, and we went everywhere. Speech and language therapy, we went together in the when speech and language therapy, we had the educational psychologist involved, we had the community pediatrician involved, with the health visitors. There was quite a multitude of professionals in there. And you know, the assessment process started, and you know, you could see where it was pointing anyway. And then they have the big meeting, and he was diagnosed with ASD at the age of 3 years, 11 months. My son had a diagnosis. What does having a diagnosis for Rio mean to us as a family, and to him getting the support he requires? To us as a family, it doesn't mean anything, because Rio is not changed to us. We have raised him the best, you know, the way we see. You know, we've not looked at the diagnosis. You know, when people say, oh, they fixate on things, don't do this and the other.
Yeah.
He is not your textbook autistic
child. No. He's really not. He has things that he likes and things that he does, but otherwise it's just everything is pretty much normal. Like, you guys, like, we fight, we argue, like, that's what the way it's always been. We don't know any different.
Yeah, and I think what I want to say to any mother who's listening, who has had a diagnosis, who's suspecting a diagnosis, who you know, is a confirmed diagnosis on their children, what a diagnosis does is very different to how your child lives. Let me explain. With us, we know that Ray is autistic. We know we've had to make some reasonable adjustments with regards to our he can be quite frustrating, let me tell you this, because when he talks about something, like he fixates on things sometimes, and he will not stop harping on about it. I cannot be impatient with him as I would be with Mercy if Mercy's banging on, because Rio bangs on, and you just have to sort of like find a way, a middle ground. So with Rio, what works for my son probably will not work for your son. What I want to say to you is find a healthy way of dealing with, you know, the parts and parcels that come with the diagnosis. Do not focus on the diagnosis. Help your children live to their best potential. I mean, it is very difficult to say because you have all your emotions to deal with as well. You have to deal with yourself in order to deal with them. So the first thing I think I had to do was to accept that my son is autistic. That was the first thing I needed to do. The second thing after, and all through this, I've loved my son, and what I needed to do was to change my perception of his world into his perception. So everything we do is very much Rio-led. Although sometimes, you know, he will try to act up because he thinks he can get away with things, we still discipline him like we discipline any other child. We still, you know, we talk to him like we talk to anybody else. So if, you know, if you walk into our house, we've tried to make things, we have humanized the autistic label, if you like. We don't say Rio is autistic. We say Rio lives with autism, right? So his world is probably going to be different to ours. We try to accommodate him in ours. He tries to accommodate us in his, and that's how we coexist. And saying what I'm saying, guys, you know, it didn't come very easily. And for the last 9 years, I've never spoken about this because, you know, you go through different types of emotions. You go through blaming yourself. One day you're accepting it. One day you're not accepting it. The shame, I don't know why shame, but the shame comes into it as well. But right now, I'm in a good place with it. We have come to a very good place. And being the mother I am, you know, I like to share my son with the world because I think where we've come from him not speaking to him being a chatterbox, sometimes you have to say, Rio, seriously, I'm tired. Because he will talk. He loves talking. He's such a sweet little boy. He's thriving in school.
He's very big on expressing himself.
He's very big on expressing himself. He will express himself. Yes. And he's such an individual. That's what I love about him. Nothing phases him. He's not ashamed of being who he is. He loves his color red. He wears the same old cap for the last 3 years. If you know any good places to buy red caps, let us know, because he wears the same cap for the longest time. But, you know, it's about acceptance. He is okay in his world. So I think the issue which I want to raise is, as parents, as the community, as a support network to our children, we have to be okay with the diagnosis. We have to be good with it. That's the only way we can support them wholeheartedly and honestly. I'm okay with the diagnosis. You know, when I walk with him in a shop and he's asking the same question for 3,000 times and I get people looking at me funny, I just go, wow.
That's what you have to do.
Wow. Exactly. And I don't feel I need to explain anything about my son to anyone. So that is that. You know, I don't make excuses for him. He's himself, and I don't ever want to apologize for him because he has got the right to exist as he is in this world like anybody else. So when he's not understanding, because, you know, with our children, people are raising kids with autism, our children sometimes do very weird and wonderful things. It's because sometimes they're not understanding, or you have not briefed them about what needs to be happening. They're anxious in themselves. So why are we having to explain to people that, you know, I'm so sorry, let them coexist? And I think, you know, where I am in having turned 40 and having been raising Rio for the last 9 years, we are in such a good space that I want other mothers and fathers out there to be in a good space. If you're a young parent who's just had a son diagnosed or suspecting, reach out to me. We can travel this journey together. I'm learning a few things. There are some things I didn't know that I'm getting to know. Okay, so we've talked about your, living with the diagnosis. There's also what having the diagnosis means. To me, it's not about stigma. And let me tell you this. In this country, if your child is having all these, behavior issues, no diagnosis, you will struggle, because they are very good at supporting children once they put a label on it. So for your child, for the doors to support to open, it's better to work on your child being diagnosed. If you don't believe in getting a diagnosis for your son because of whatever reasons, that is also entirely up to you. I would have never wanted the label for my son, but everything was clearly pointing to that. And also for him to get the adequate support he requires. He was struggling in school before he had the diagnosis. The diagnosis had unlocked all the support. And I'm talking, these are people based in the UK. I cannot speak for any other countries because I don't know what support is in your country. But it's always good to ask if you're anywhere else in the world apart from the UK, what is out there. In the UK, my son, after my son had a confirmed diagnosis, they gave him all the support he requires. He now thrives in school because he's got a one-to-one support who helps him and focuses on what he wants to learn. His behavior is very much better now that he's more settled, he's not anxious, he's not being left in a big wide classroom on his own. He knows that he's got support if he wants to be in class, he's got support if he needs to be out. So the diagnosis in itself opens so much doors in terms of the financial support you require, the practical support you require. And if you are working full-time, if you need carer support, you get all that. But it all comes from you being okay, accepting the diagnosis as it is, and moving on with the support that your son requires. And also, one thing I want to leave with yourselves is, this is not about you, it is about them. What you do not want for yourself, fair enough, but it shouldn't, it should not put a barrier on your son or daughter living the best life that they can live. Now my son can have a bath on his own, he can make himself breakfast, he knows his way to school and back. If I'm driving him there and I pretend I'm lost, he'll be like, no mommy, we're going this way, we turn here. He is so much aware because he's getting the right support. So this is one in many videos I'm going to be putting out with regards to support for children with autism. So yes, my Rio is autistic and we are very proud of him.
Yes, we are.
So for videos of similar, if you want us to elaborate more on this, ask questions underneath this. What I've tried to do here is just give you an overview, just an overview. It's very difficult to go into depth with every strand. There are so many facets to the diagnosis. There's the financial side of things, there's the practical side of things, there's the signposting, there's what does the Care Act, what does the Children's and Family Act say, all these things we could talk about. But I want you to let me know what you want us to discuss, and I can put it out there. Be it the finances, be it the practical support, informal support groups, informal support networks. What does having an autistic ethnic minority child mean, and all those things, because there's a cultural aspect to the diagnosis as well. So there are things that we could discuss, but this was an overview. If you are very much interested in this video, please give it a thumbs up
and share it, guys. And
share it if you need to. Share it in your social platforms. I'm going to share it in my social platforms. Share, share, share. Do not suffer in silence. Autism is not anything to be ashamed of. No. The more we speak about it, the more support we give to each other. So don't forget to
like, comment, and subscribe, guys. And please share it. If you know someone who needs to see this video, share it with them. Last words, share it.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, we will see you in our next video.
Bye.